Ah, back again. It's it's amazing how if you talk about certain subjects, either in Messenger or on Facebook or on YouTube and probably many other social platforms, that you sort of get censored one way or another. So have to be careful how we say things, I think, a lot of the time. Certainly with anything written, I would definitely suggest misspelling to dispel the spells. Oh, this is disappointing after we've had quite a big audience and then everybody's gone. No, too. Hi. If you watched the previous one, thank you for coming back. I just didn't like the way it just sort of cut me off. It's like, I'll finish when I'm ready. I'd actually said all I wanted to say in a way, but I like the interaction of the live. So if there's any questions you want to ask, I'm not saying I've got the answers, but I can possibly give an explanation that hopefully will make sense of something that will fit in. Because it comes down to a point of reference. A lot of people will, if you mention anything about other dimensional entities, for example, a lot of people will dismiss it because they have no point of reference to that apart from possibly a horror film, or they've got no direct actual experience of it, so they cannot relate to it because they have no point of it. But it does not exist. I would suggest that a lot. Oh, now we've got connection problems again. Hopefully this will sort itself out. We may have to abandon this one and then come back another time. Yes, got the connection back now. Yeah, with this thing with these interdimensional entities and archons and parasites and working on an energy level, a lot of people will dismiss. Well, I would suggest you could say to them, well, you know that feeling you get when you walk into a room and you can sense there's an atmosphere is an example of how everybody does actually feel something that doesn't have a physical form, anger, hatred even. They're all things without a physical form, but because things have been compartmentalized, people are not doing a cross comparison and thinking, well, hang on a minute. Because anything that you experience like that, you can't go to a surgeon and say, can you take this out, cut me open and take this thing out? It's not got a physical form, but it can feel very real. So I would not dismiss anybody that said that they have been experienced alien abduction, for example. Certainly in the time before the internet, so we're talking like just after the Roswell thing, 47 onwards, into the 1950s, where people were far more isolated and the news didn't have the coverage it has today within seconds. You've got to say like BBC News 24, every bank, and a lot of shops you go into, it's being broadcast all the time, and you're seeing what is supposedly going on within seconds in another country somewhere in the world, which you didn't have with these early abduction cases. And they all seem to describe the same basic entities or beings, these things called greys with the big eyes, that's become the classic alien. It's put into children's cartoons, it's put into the whole consciousness of humanity in a very backdoor route through science fiction, as much as anything else, and it is making it into a reality. I don't, like Moon, I don't doubt that for 1 minute. I would now. A lot of people have talked about having regression because they have. I don't know if you have absences in the time. This is said to happen with this, and I would consider very carefully if you're thinking about having regression, because the brain will switch off from unpleasantries, and you have to consider, do you want those memories brought back into your conscious mind that could maybe give you nightmares and things? This is just generally for anybody who is saying that they've been abducted or have felt like they've been through an experience, because it may not be happening in a physical form. This may all be being something that's projected into the mind, and you may not actually leave the room at all. But there's nothing to say that it's not going to feel real. Yeah, I'd say that's wise, like Moon. I wouldn't go there. It's been blocked off your memory in the same way that somebody can wake up in a hospital bed, have gone through a windscreen of a car, but they'll have no memory of it. They'll remember being in the car before the event, but the brain will lock it out because it is trauma. And I think that is very wise. That's one case where we don't need to look both ways and go in, because being aware that that's what happened is enough. I think you don't need to go any further down into that rabbit hole, because you have to think about, and this is the same with truth seeking as well. Do you want, how deep do you really want to go with the child sacrifice ritual aspect? It's enough to know that something so horrific and unpleasant actually happens, because see it from the point of view of being that child on the receiving end of it. That is enough to know, without going any deeper, because I can't see it doing anything but except generate a negative feeling that can manifest as anger or as sickness, or even give you nightmares. And I don't think that would be a good thing to do. Time traveled, excellent. Time is a funny thing anyway. It seems to be unique to this 3D reality. Well, tomorrow you could say it's my birthday. I'm a year old. I'm not talking about the physical body, obviously, but I am a walk-in. And a year ago was a very strange experience. It felt like being dumped in a city as a tourist. And suddenly I've lost this guide that was showing me around. And I've got enough cell memory to function. But then I'm having things put in front of me like, do I even like eating that? I don't know. And it's been a funny year for learning a decade a month, basically, on catching up and recalling these cell memories and putting it all back together, rebuilding the story. Even my mother says I've changed. I'm a completely different person, and that's because I am. The soul is different. There's such a thing as caretaker souls who they're like travelers. They will go within a vessel, because we're in a thing called time. Maybe if I was appearing to you as, say, a 10-year-old boy, no one's going to listen or take me seriously. Maybe I have to look like this image, because it is a stage. Fear of the unknown. Mary, right. That's an easy one to deal with. Leave aside the trauma side, right? Now, let's put this into an everyday context. You're going for a job and you've been selected for the interview. Now you're creating in your mind all sorts of scenarios. Will I get the job? Won't I get the job? How will I appear on the day? What if the bus is late? Or how are you going to get there? Is it going to rain? Am I going to turn up like a drowned rat? All these things, and you're creating all these things in your mind, probably not without even a lot of it thinking about it. How you're going to present yourself. See that word present. It comes into, again, first impressions. You're going to be judged on how you look, how you answer the questions. There's a whole psychology to interviews, how far away you are from a desk, how vulnerable they make you feel. Then there's all the trickery as well. It's like, why do you want this job? Because I've got bills to pay, obviously, and I'm stuck in the matrix system. But you can't say that. You have to come up with some semi-believable answer, like, I've always dreamt of working in this parcel factory and throwing packages into a trolley. It's so ridiculous, and for a pittance that you're going to get paid anyway. And I can think of far better ways of spending my life, because time it's a currency. Time is linear, therefore it decays. So the Jordan Maxwell one is a brilliant analogy. You don't want to get to 90 years old sitting in an old people's home thinking, I've learned absolutely nothing in this life. All I've believed is what my parents and grandparents told me, and I've not looked into anything for myself, and I'm still pondering on the mysteries of life, and I don't even know why I was even here. And I've gone through 90 odd years. I'm now in a home practically like a vegetable, going back to incontinence pants, and getting to the point where I might as well just be put down, because I'm just a waste of space and I'm gathering dust. That's not what we're here for, is it, really? I don't know, some people just don't seem to have this, seem to have a lack of imagination. And I think that's what the education system is all about. It is making you within the box. You're not thinking outside the box. So I can say, with my birthday being tomorrow and also in May, I'm not going to be able to fill in any application forms for anything. I mentioned I think it was the last vlog, I said, there are two questions that really baffle me. And I don't think I actually said the second one. And that is, if someone said to me, what do you do for a living? Well, my answer would be to that straight away, well, what are you defining as living? Are you meaning what is occupying my time and taking up my time? Then I'm going to come up with multiple answers to that one. Let me just catch up with these comments again. Mary, you're saying it's a fear of trauma that you're blocking. So is it something from the past that you're seeing as coming in the future? Because traumas are normally past events that we try and block out, not something that's coming. And I would say you don't have anything to fear at all. I know that. Don't ask me how I know, I just feel it. It'd be wrong for me. It's too personal to talk in. I'll talk to you privately about this aspect, but you don't have anything to fear. You really don't. What was I talking about? I can't even remember now. Have a fun day tomorrow. Yes, it is going to be a fun day. It's supposed to be it's forecast to be a nice day. Normally I don't get up till what is now 11 o'clock, which is still my midday. I've been asked to cut next door's grass and sort out the holly bush. So if the weather's nice enough, I'll do that. Then I'm also doing this decorating, so I've got to finish painting the ceiling. I built hang on, I'll get it. That's the easiest way. This started off as an old floorboard that sat in the garage. So it's all been cut to shape, sanded and put together, and it is now going to be a spice rack. It's giving wood new life, and I don't know how, it probably won't show very well, but beeswax just bringing out all the grain, the story of the tree, because it's either it's either pay into the system and buy this MDF or chipboard rubbish that's not going to last, or I can use that wood again. So that's what I've gone for. I don't want to put money into the system because that is the mechanism that is driving everything. So it is as much it's unplugging in the mind with the media. It's unplugging physically as well, and we can all chip away at this. Nobody has to make one great big stand and get themselves locked up and get a life sentence. We can all do little bits. Oh, thank you. It's actually, it's not very good. A professional carpenter would probably say, you got that wrong, but I had limited tools. I was resharpening an old chisel. But it comes back to this manufacturing and standardization. I like, they call it rustic, is the way around it these days. And it's functional and it does the job. I'm not worried about it matching exactly. Wood contrasts and nature colours go together anyway. Where are we? Sorry, I'm just catching up with the comments. Yeah, Mary, it sounds like you went into this. I think there's more than one anyway. It's a void, really. It's outside of time and space. It's outside of this reality that the soul seems to go into. But interestingly, there's a memory that comes back. I mean, my experience of it, I couldn't tell if it's 5 seconds or 5 million years or anywhere in between, because the time has absolutely no relevance. It's almost impossible to even describe. And I have seen non-earthly, otherworldly colours, which the closest I can describe, and I think it's very interesting that they are in the stained glass, particularly in church windows, when you get the sunlight coming through them. There's colours I can't even put into words that don't conform to any colours in this realm. That's the only way I can describe it. It's amazing to see. And there was like a stream which looked like liquid mercury, like that hematite stone, almost like a mirror. It's a very weird experience. Yeah, more coffee. Takes me ages to drink coffee. I sort of just sip it as I go. Doesn't bother me if it's cold either. Anything but fluoridated water. No, I don't. Time doesn't exist except in this strange reality, and everything is sort of geared up with education. It's like when you can go to the toilet, when you're going to eat, when you're going to have your lunch, when you're going to this class, when you're going to that class, and so on. And it sets up this robotic conformity and stamps out any individuality. Good on 3 cheers for people who have autistic tendencies, because they do think out of the box. They're uncontrollable by the system. That's why they're shown in such a negative light in many ways, because it's an extreme of a skill at the expense of something else. So they may be able to do one thing really well, but not be able to tie shoelaces, for example. But we shouldn't ridicule them for that either. because they can ridicule us and what they can excel at. It's all perspectives really on all this, and I think it's good to be. I quite like the idea of being given a form to fill in, because I won't give it form. Um, because I shall do it in such a way that I don't fit in any box in the answers. I will just give it back to them blank, because they don't need to know. It's the same with this obsession with trying to get me to vote, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. I shall adopt the Kyle Reese attitude of, well, why am I even talking to you if you're not in authority? Because therefore you're not my equal. You meet me as an equal. I'm a living Christ, I'm a living God, and so are you, if you just realise it. Quite right too. You shouldn't need to ask to go to the toilet. When you need to go, you need to go. It's as simple as that, regardless. Your body will tell you, will give you the sensation. So it's not like it's going to, well, unless there's something wrong, it's not going to sneak up unexpected. No, I suddenly need the toilet. So you won't start something if you feel the sensation coming on anyway. It's listening to the body. It's just pure logic. But this stupid control system that tells us when we can and can't do things, no, thank you. They can keep that. The menu is off. The service is diabolical. What they're serving us, I don't want them. I don't want anybody serving me, and whether they be these demonic or whatever you call them. If that's what they're meant to do, then I decline their service, because it's not very good. And what they're serving up is just absolute rubbish. I can do better for myself. But of course, they put things in place to tell you what you can and can't do, because that's their fear system again, because they don't want you doing what will come naturally. So I don't think anybody is, well, unless there's something very wrong, they're not born with a nasty bone in their body where they want to inflict pain and get pleasure out of doing that on somebody else or something else. But it seems to be something that does to come in, and we are going through this pandemic, this as Christine Holographic Multiverse has said, this frontal temporal dementia, and I don't know if there is any coming back from it once it takes hold. There is definitely a split in humanity between those that are balanced and those that are running purely on emotion. But it's superficial emotion. It's validation. It's an inner void, something lacking within themselves, that they are unable to be content with themselves, happy with themselves, able to be in their own company and in silence. You have this continuous bombardment and there's noise distortion. Every store is now playing music. You're encouraged to have headphones in, and it's continuous noise and frequency distortions. There is a huge, because it is this frontal temporal area where the third eye is, where everything is going to come in and out, basically. The seeing with the heart. It seems this muddying of this third eye, this distortion, visually and audibly and energetically. It's an assault from every angle. This is why I say we are the fallen angels, because we've been fooled by angles. And when you fall, you are a fool as well. And falling for so many fake stories and so many deceptions that are hiding our true selves of what we really are, and our true power and the potential of what we have and what we can do. I really cannot say how this is going to go in the terms of, is it going to be a physical split of Earth into two? Are we going to leave these vessels and move to a more crystalline state? There's so much speculation on this, and I can see so much sense to all of it. And I can picture how it could be like that in many ways. Yes, Angela, it's very much a case of do as I do, or do as I say, not do as I do. But actions speak louder than words. And it's right what your son has pointed out. I mean, 10 minutes of shouting at a pupil. I mean, what could warrant 10 minutes is going to, this is where the illusion of time comes into. If someone was shouting at you for 10 minutes, um, that's going to seem like a long time. And what on earth can they be saying to make it last 10 minutes? That seems like pent up aggression at something else that is being vented out and hiding behind a mask and taking out that teacher's own frustrations. Because the other thing with this whole education system, if you go on to university, you'll probably come out of it with a degree and you'll have letters after your name, and going to be a judgment, and oh, that person's been to university and for 5 years they've studied this, therefore I will look up to them because they know more than me about a particular subject. Yes, they might know the details, but what if the foundation of that subject is built on sand and it's built on a false narrative in the first place? It's all very well remembering all these minute details on a particular subject, like a particle physicist, for example, comes to mind. Oh dear. A theoretical particle physicist, I should say, because it is all theory. It's jumbling figures and things, but does it really serve any purpose? Does it really help? I don't think it does. I just love the way you have this terminology with science now. Something a link I was sent earlier talking about this so-called junk DNA. Well, it's funny how they call it junk because they don't understand it. It's dismissed or ridiculed, although it's acknowledged it's there. And oh, funny enough, they're now starting to have second thoughts on this, that it does have a function and does have a purpose. And indeed it does. It's just capped off for a very good reason. In the same way that oil pipelines are capped off. Oil fields are held in reserve. They are reserves, reservoirs. So it's still replicating the same pattern, and our DNA is capped off for a good reason, because the potential of it is enormous. But you don't want that potential going into the wrong hands of someone who is not operating from a position of benevolence. If they're operating from the standpoint of being self-serving at the expense of anything and everything else, well, it's a good thing it is capped off, because they could do some serious damage. It looks like with this world government, it's doing it anyway. But there are more people now starting to wake up to it. Yes, that's the other thing with school. Why do they teach mathematics to such young children? Because, say it's just something like addition, and the teacher saying, "You got that wrong. No, that's not right." That's all negative reaction. That's setting up a way of looking at life that is not going to help anybody. Far better to let younger children express themselves with art where there is no judgment and the dynamics change. It's an interesting word as well, dynamics. I mean, you've got the dinar, which was a currency, and dinar IC. it's not spending your time wisely like that. The homeschooling and just getting through it is probably the best outcome within this system. But also teaching children that, look, that's the answer they want, not necessarily the right answer, because that's going to be confusing to a child. Because children are very perceptive. But of course, if they ask too many awkward questions, you'll get told that you have to stick to the curriculum, and we can't deviate. Time is limited, and we must progress with the work. So it's not even an open and free debate on any of this. So that is not learning. That is just teaching a particular mindset. And go through the motions of education. I hated every second of it. And then you start teaching yourself when you come out the other side of it. I can quite easily just sit here all day with my eyes shut, not say a word. I may watch a few things on YouTube. I may listen to other people if I get alerts and think, oh, that person's worth listening to. And then something will resonate in what they say anyway. And then it leads to another presentation like this. all sparked from what other people have said, which I think it's only fair. We're playing pass the parcel here. It's not passing the buck, because that's a monetary term. And it's also seen passing the buck is not taking responsibility. I take full responsibility for everything I say on here. And I hope it comes across that I am speaking from the heart, and it's definitely not scripted. I have nothing written in front of me. It's just as it's coming. So I could never honestly say how long these presentations, like when I'm doing this live, are going to be. I'm conscious if I do it with the pre-recorded method, that it's the memory card that is the limitation. I could talk for hours. I have already. But sharing is caring, and don't feel, if you're not making YouTube videos, that anything about you is any less valid, because it's an obstacle to overcome, this talking to a screen. I'm sort of way past it now, and I would say do a practice run. Just make a video, not to actually publish, but just for your own, see how you come across, and see if you like how you come across. Because if you don't like how you come across, how are you going to help anybody else? Because it comes down to the energy you radiate out. And there was bits I would have liked to have changed about myself, about the way I look, but it would involve plastic surgery and no artificial. So you then think of it in another way, and then just be happy with the way you are. Don't try and wear a mask, because that's part from my limited knowledge of technology, and I don't really want to know how to do it. But I'd rather go down this route of just being, well, this is me speaking, this is what I'm saying. You either can listen, or if you don't like what I'm saying, then you don't have to. And just be honest, and this is me, this is what I'm saying. There you go. Sorry, let's keep up with these comments. Yeah, flowing and vibing. It's picking up on your energies as well. Sometimes if I'm talking to somebody on Messenger, just a one-to-one, I can really sort of tune in and pick up I get shown things. It's not like an invasive camera. It's things will come in the mind which you can then relay to that person, which gives them a proof that it's an unseen energy connection. It's not spying. You're not showing just anything. There's always a respect for privacy with other people. The spiritual side would never do anything in a harmful way when it is from this awakening. It's always going to be something positive, and it's just purely as shown as a proof, really. And it's amazing the feeling. Where's these cigarette papers? What's happened here? I have to start a new packet. Sorry, I digress. But yeah, I'm sort of fairly lucky. I don't have to have. Sorry about the rushing. Plastic goes in the recycling bin. I'm fairly lucky. I'm not in this 9-to-5 system anymore, and I'm not within this weekly routine. So I've got a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot I feel I'm powerless to actually change, although the intent and the feeling is there, and in particular with what's not just California but many other places in the world, if what we're told is true, that this is the only way I can see that it can be done, and collectively it becomes that much stronger if we're all singing from the same song sheet, as it were. That's not saying that we all have to think identically and like all believe in exactly the same thing, but as long as the general perception and what we want to achieve is the same, and it is one of benevolence and kindness that is not going to bring misfortune onto something or somebody else, then that, I think, is all that it needs to be. And collectively, it's just unlocking this potential of humanity on what it really is. But it comes back down to this point of reference of, if we have nothing to compare against, then how do we know? I'm trying to think of another example of this. A classic one would be, you see those videos of babies when they first taste a lemon and the shocked look on their face, because it's a new paradigm to them. It's something they've never experienced. So if you can imagine that you go through life and you've never experienced or tasted anything like a raw lemon or a lime or any citrus fruit, come to that, you wouldn't probably even think of you'd have nothing to go on to think of the experience. So this again is why I suggested that that's how Tartaria fell so easily, because it did not have the logic. So likewise, by extension of that, if we have no point of reference as to what we really are, which is these gods and goddesses, because we are the fallen angels, we are earth angels. But without that point of reference, to most people, it will not even occur to them, because it's like asking them to describe a lemon that they've never tasted. That's probably the best way I can sort of sum this up, really. But I can see it and I can sense it, and I know a lot of you can in different aspects of it, maybe. But this general awakening, we are alive. Notice the similarity to the electrical term with like a live wire, because we are energy. This being alive in this 3 dimension at this time is an exciting time, because this can go one of 2 ways if we allow it. See, we all have this choice. It comes back to, if you choose to go in that restaurant and go to that menu, well, what about running our own restaurant, making our own menu? We've got the potential to do it. There's enough of us. It's just this mutual cooperation that's needed, and not falling for all these deceptions that are placed upon us. Excellent, Percy. That's brilliant. Yes, that's another thing. Definitely, Lee on Flat Earth British Sub has a video on the. I can't think of the name of it, but it's all about the Holy See, that maritime law, basically. And I would strongly recommend that everybody becomes at least a little bit familiar with what a birth certificate is. And it is basically trading your soul, and you're speculated on the value that is placed upon you. You don't actually exist as such without that. And this is the trick in the courts. They give you this legal fiction that is not you. That's a piece of paper. But that is sort of the validation for everything by agreement between everybody. And that's the thing that people need to see. There's the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, the straw man. It's identify what that is and see that it is not you at all. That is something totally different. That is this land of make-believe, this holographic overlay on this reality that people are being tricked by. Because the word no is a very powerful word, and that's the one we need to start saying more. It's not negative to say no when what is being offered to you is absolute rubbish in the first place. It's not acceptable. It doesn't pass quality control. Take it away. That is really shoddy service. Same as the internet provider. I wasn't happy with the service, so bye-bye. Got another one that does serve, apart from the bit of pixelization earlier. Yes, name and DNA. Yeah. If anybody is considering doing those genealogy tests, do read the small print. Ancestry, I think it's paragraph 2 or 3, says about you. It gives them, by agreeing to the service, you are giving them unlicensed use of your DNA. So potentially you could be set up for a crime. You could be that white supremacist that is firing off into the crowds and shooting all these 17 people or 33 people or 42 people normally, because in court your DNA proves it was you. You know, you could be, that could be your 15 minutes of fame. You could be that mad genocidal maniac who started firing the crowd because you've been convicted purely in your DNA, and you were anywhere near the place at the time, but your DNA tells you that, tells the courts that you are. I'm just painting out an awful scenario on purpose, because that is the side you have to look both ways. That's what they could do with your DNA. You could become the next Greta. You could become the base. You could become the prototype. You could have a clone version of you manufactured. You could have your childhood stolen. I'll be back. So yeah, it's record. Hi DJ Harden. This is getting really good. It's just like it's nice seeing the same names coming up. It's like a community get together. It's sort of come round to my house for the evening, and I'll entertain you by me waffling on. So hopefully others will do the same. Not saying it suits everybody, but have fun. That's the best thing I can say. Anyway, I am going to go now. We've talked for 44 minutes this time. So have a nice day. Thank you very much. Is it going to switch off? Ah, it's doing that again. These never end well. Come on. No. I'm clicking the end stream and it won't. Ah, there we go. End.
I opened the door just before you finished.
It's all right.
It'll be fun the next few weeks.
He's still saying live. Yeah, got it this time. It's very slow.